Mike, I gotta ask a question, man. How are the pillow sales? Not doing too hot? I mean, you're supporting someone found liable for sexual abuse, liable for defamation, liable. No, well, I mean, he's supporting someone found liable for sexual abuse.
The question about how Kamala Harris in particular is going to reach some of the men, particularly white men, particularly white working class men, or even young men, Gen Z men, who are gravitating towards Trump and towards Republicanism because of everything that they've done online. What does she need to do to get them back? And are you seeing it here or seeing it in the program to come?
One word, Walz. There's competing images or displays of masculinity here. I think the right or the Republican convention is Hulk Hogan. It's, Ultimate Fighting Championship. There is an appeal to masculinity around being very straightforward, even being on the verge of being coarse, maybe even being a little bit offensive, like saying it how it is. And there's huge demand for it because young men have become more conservative, and also a lot of people sense there's a real problem in our nation. 4 times as likely to kill themselves, 3 times as likely to be addicted, 12 times as likely to be incarcerated. Contrasting that with the modern form, I think, of masculinity here, and that is someone who served in the National Guard for 24 years, is a high school football coach. I mean, that's kind of the definition of masculinity. You're a high school football coach, but at the same time, he rallies those young men in an effort to protect LGBTQ students who claim they're being bullied. That is a nice modern vision of masculinity.
It's protector. It's the protector, which you talk a lot. And she had that word, I'm the protector, too. And that is appealing. It's the, people joke about he's sort of the dad, the dad jokes, which I spent a lot of time listening to. But there is appeal to that, to young men.
All right, guys, so we got to talk about a running joke that I have been making on this channel that is not really a joke, okay? I'm actually kind of serious when I talk about this as one of the biggest problems with this country. It could be the biggest issue that we're facing in this country right now, especially when it comes to voting, which is the decline in testosterone levels among the average man, okay? Over the past 50 to 60 years, alongside obesity becoming a big problem, testosterone levels for men have declined significantly, okay? And this is an issue because quite literally, if you're a man with low testosterone, then you're not thinking clearly, right? You're not thinking straight about how you make certain decisions, especially when it comes to voting, because in my opinion, men should vote conservative/Republican at the same rate that black people vote Democrat, except there are actually real reasons for men to vote conservative/Republican at a 90% rate. There are not any real reasons for why black people should vote Democrat at a 90% clip. But regardless, it's funny because I have been bringing this up over the past couple of weeks as kind of a running joke, but CNN and MSNBC admitted out loud that what I'm saying is true in regards to the type of men that Democrats appeal to. They appeal to low T, more softer men, okay, who don't mind taking a step back and letting a woman lead, okay, letting a woman be the man. And as you guys kind of heard at the beginning of this video, the modern masculine man is somebody like Tim Walz, right, who doesn't protect women. It's not about protecting women anymore, okay? It's about protecting LGBTQ, okay? That is what makes you a man. Not protecting women, but protecting LGBTQ. That is the definition of a modern man, the protector archetype. This is what they admitted on CNN and MSNBC about the men that vote Democrat. Take a look.
Ism trying to own masculinity in the most regressive, sort of misogynist way possible. J.D. Vance lecturing everybody on, what a family means, what it means to be a man. Donald Trump obviously has his own version of manhood. To see Tim Walz out there as a man who is just joyfully embracing his role as the potential vice president to the woman, the nation's first female president, is an extraordinary thing. But also to see his son weeping for his father in a deeply tender and emotional way. And then the last thing I'll say, because I think this hasn't been talked about enough, to see Democrats champion men as voices on reproductive choice. Yeah. As you saw yesterday, I believe, from Amanda Zarowski's husband, tonight from Tim Walz, talking about struggles with infertility. It takes 2 partners to get pregnant. And for way too long, this conversation has been relegated to women or the carriers of pregnancies. And it is, I think, way overdue to have men express not only their stake in all this, but also their anguish. And to have a football coach talk about the anguish of infertility, I think opens up a whole new conversation about the stakes at hand for 2024.
And by the way, and I love that you're saying that, because this is about modern masculinity.
Yes. Yeah.
And in the Democratic Party, the coach that is saying that it's important for him as the football coach to be the faculty partner for the LGBTQ
Gay
club,
Straight Alliance.
The Gay Straight Alliance. And he's like, that's something important for me to do, because if a coach is doing it, it's going to have just a little more salience, right? And it's going to help kids not get bullied. I mean, what's really been fascinating is to watch the men of the Democratic Party model a kind of masculinity that is simply 21st century masculinity.
Speaking of 21st century masculinity, how about that? How about
Look at that as a setup.
that lead in? We got Senator Cory Booker.
I'm like, who's it gonna be?
Who could it be? But
Yeah, we did that.
the 21st century man himself, Senator Booker.
But they are doing so in trying to put forward male figures, Tim Walz being one of them, Doug Emhoff last night, who can speak to men out there who might not be the sort of testosterone-laden, gun-toting kind of guy who wants to listen to Hulk Hogan and the kind of players that came out at the RNC, or might want to listen to that, but also, in addition, understand that it's okay in 2024 to be a man comfortable in his own skin who supports a woman. And that's something that they really are trying to work on with male voters beyond the base.
Abby, we were talking.
Yeah, so here you have it. The quiet part out loud is being said on MSNBC and CNN about men that support Democrats, right? Liberal men tend to be less masculine, traditionally masculine, because they're trying to redefine what masculinity is to be more feminine, right? This is what they're trying to do, okay? You have to be, more pro-woman, okay? You have to be softer. You have to carry yourself in ways that seem to indicate that you may not necessarily be a fan of sleeping with women or, sexually attracted to women. Again, they're trying to redefine masculinity in a way that is beneficial to the far left progressive agenda. So according to them, being less traditionally masculine is what makes you more 21st century masculine, which is the target demographic of Democrats, like men that are quite literally becoming less manly, right? Which is what's happening as testosterone levels continue to plummet among the average man in this country. Okay. And this is something that is being rewarded and targeted by the Democrat Party, right? It's kind of sick to think about. Okay. They want to shame you for being what you're supposed to be, right? And again, that is kind of the messed up part about it. And one of the things that made me notice this the most is the fact that when you have these news outlets, like, for example, CNN or MSNBC, the type of men that they tend to put out in front of the masses are men that exhibit behaviors that are very non-masculine. Like, for example, Bakari Sellers and Van Jones, boohoo whining and crying, right? I mean, boohoo whining and crying on national television. Not a very manly thing to do, okay? I'm not saying men should never cry, but when you're crying about Joe Biden, a white man, being elected, yeah, I mean, that's a problem, okay? That's a big problem, okay? You have the Michael Steele types, okay? That's on MSNBC. Very effeminate, okay? The way that he talks, the way that he carries himself. And I started to just pick up on this pattern. I'm like, I just don't see too many masculine, liberal Democrat men. Like, a vast majority of them just seem to be not very masculine or manly, right? And then I started to look at some of the influencers that Democrats are paying to brainwash the masses. And I started to pick up on the same pattern, especially among the white male influencers, right? They all kind of look the same, right? They all look like they sit down when they pee.
Oh my God. One might think that if you're running to be the next president of the United States, that you might just want to distance yourself from someone like, Jeffrey Epstein. Well, that's not exactly what Donald Trump decided to do, because according to the Miami Herald, Jeffrey Epstein's plane is now back in service thanks to Donald J. Trump. That's right, Donald Trump is flying on Jeffrey Epstein's plane.
And it's going to be close, and we want to win, you know? But the thing that I find so interesting about it is that what we're watching does seem to be the spiraling out of control of a political campaign with Trump's campaign, because he doesn't really know how to run against Vice President Harris. He's struggling, the petty attacks, the personal stuff. Now saying he is better looking than her at a recent rally. And
yeah, so soy overload, okay? Once you see it, you can't unsee it, right? There's clearly a pattern here in regards to how Democrats try to present what is modern masculinity, okay? They do it differently based off race, so it seems, right? I mean, all of them are kind of effeminate, right, across races. But, you know, for black men, okay, they'll have them boohoo whining and crying on CNN and MSNBC, right? Shedding tears, okay, over a white man and a black woman, okay? This is what they'll do, right? Now, for the white guys, you know, they always kind of put out these scrawny white dudes, right, with no muscle mass whatsoever, that have these very, again, effeminate kind of gestures and behaviors that they engage in. I mean, look at who's on Kamala Harris's ticket. I mean, look at Tim Walz, right? When this dude walks on stage, I mean, it looks like I'm watching a runway show, right? I mean, the way that he twitches his hips and, you know, his hand gesticulations and stuff like that. It's like, bro, I got questions, right? I got questions. So, you know, again, this is not coming from the perspective of, you know, some super alpha male thing, right? That's not what this is, okay? At all, right? That's not what I'm getting at here, okay? I guess what I'm getting at is that when you see the type of people, the type of men that they put out in front of the masses that are supposed to be a representation of Democrat men or liberal men, they just don't seem to be very traditionally masculine. And I think that is done for a reason, okay? Because they're trying to brainwash young men into believing that it's okay to not embrace who you are as a man, right? And this is why they were so opposed to Andrew Tate. I mean, you can say what you want about the guy, but the liberal left, they're very afraid of people like him influencing young men to the point where in the UK, they had re-education camps, right? Like re-education classes for young men who were influenced by the toxic masculinity of Andrew Tate. And they're scared to death of the so-called toxic masculinity. And I think one of the reasons why is because if young men actually embrace who they are, right? If they embrace what they were born to be, then we probably would not be headed in the situation that we're in right now. Okay, we are being led off a cliff, mainly behind a pro-progressive, pro-feminist, pro-LGBTQ agenda of the far left. That is not only forgot about the straight, traditionally masculine man, but they actually go out of their way to demonize the straight, traditionally masculine man. Okay, this is what they're doing, right? This is the agenda, right? And I think a lot of it does come back to the fact that we have testosterone levels declining as we experience more and more obesity, sedentary lifestyles. And I think that that's an important thing to talk about and discuss is what is happening to young kids, young men today, where growing up, you know, I used to go outside and play all the time, every single day. Okay, I was not in the house all day playing video games. Now, some days I was, but for the most part, I was outside playing football, hide and seek, wrestling on the trampoline, you know, and I also grew up in the country too, right? So big fields, right? Big grass, okay, where you could just play all day long with other boys, right? In ways that I think young boys don't really do too much of nowadays, right? And I think that's part of the problem is how kids are being raised, how young boys are being raised. They're in the house, they're playing video games all day, they're sitting down, they're getting fat, okay? They're not doing the things that young men used to do, and I think that that's a problem, right? I think that that is part of the issue, and then on top of that, as they get older, they're told that, hey, no, don't embrace these things that make you traditionally masculine, or don't embrace the things that make you who you are, or that make you a strong man, what we traditionally think about as a strong man. And, you know, clearly it's a huge problem. It shows up in how I think some of these men are voting, and you can see that by the types of individuals that are at these events, okay, supporting these Democrats, and also the people that they put on TV, the men that they put on television as representations of modern masculinity, which seems to be the opposite, right, of traditional masculinity. So it's just some food for thought. It's very fascinating stuff to think about. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.